Greetings everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm your host, Captain Rye, and today's video comes to us from Storm Surge Alpha yet again. Storm Surge is playing in the Tier 4 US destroyer, the USS Clemson. The map is Fault Line, it's Domination Match Mode, and Storm Surge is headed off towards the A cap point. Now this battle is going to be particularly interesting because Storm Surge is going to do something that I have rarely ever seen while playing World of Warships, and something that I have never actually managed to do myself while playing World of Warships. And part of this battle is going to be breaking down exactly how he manages to achieve that with, above all things else, good teamwork. Now, the Clemson is a reasonable little Tier 4 destroyer, and it's reasonable in the respect that when you upgrade the torpedoes, they have an okay range. They're a little bit short of your detection range, but that's okay because you have torpedo sets on both sides, so you can get out torpedoes on one side, get out torpedoes on the other side, making that suicide rush at the enemy. Once you upgrade the guns on the ship, you get 2 cannons per turret, giving you basically double the firepower. Now, as Storm Surge gets up into the A cap point, he runs across the Tier 5 enemy destroyer, the Nicholas. So this is a Tier 5 maximum game, and he is in a Tier 4. He's lucky here that the battle dynamics don't have Tier 6s anymore, which used to be a thing. But you can see here the guns on the ship are pretty reasonable. Of course, you do have that awkward turret placement that means not all of your turrets can fire at an enemy ship. But again, once you upgrade the guns, you get 2 guns per turret. Now the enemy team is down 1 destroyer, and they were already at a destroyer disadvantage, having 3 destroyers to Storm Surge's 4 destroyers. And now, with that Nicholas dead, they can start capping the A cap point. The enemy team has managed to gain the C cap point, and they got a pretty early cap on that. So they are gaining back some of the points that they've just lost from losing that destroyer. But now that Storm Surge's team has the A cap point, they're going to start gaining points at the same rate. That means that slight points advantage that they have is going to be maintained. Now, whoever gets the B cap point or manages to secure another kill is going to find that they're going to gain an early points advantage. And when you're talking about domination match mode, the team that can get that early points advantage first generally has a better chance of winning, usually because it means that team doesn't have to push as aggressively. They can sit back and just defend points, especially using islands to cover these points. Or it means they have more ships and they can focus down the remaining enemy ships a little bit easier. There are carriers in this game as well, and a Tier 4 destroyer is probably not the best thing to have to deal with running into an enemy carrier. However, low-tier carriers cannot manual drop. So this is actually a really good thing, simply because if it was a manual drop situation, you'd really run the risk of being torpedoed. You can still run the risk of being torpedoed, because I do believe you can adjust the attack angle at which those aircraft come in, so you could do a cross drop. But when you're talking about something small and fast and light, like a destroyer, especially a US destroyer, you can really do a very good job of dodging the spread as those torpedoes get dropped. Now, as Storm Surge is pushing up here, the enemy team has lost yet another destroyer, so they're down to 1 destroyer. His team still has 3 of their destroyers, well, all 4 of their destroyers, and that does give them advantage. But of course, the enemy carrier, he's being a very smart player, and he's got his aircraft out spotting. Now Storm Surge comes around this island at basically point-blank range to this cruiser here. Manages to secure the kill there with 3 torpedo hits. He didn't actually need that second set to get pushed out there, but he did it just in case. It wasn't entirely sure, but I think that cruiser really didn't have much of an option after getting hit by the 3rd one with 3 floodings. But that cruiser does manage to take out the friendly destroyer on Storm Surge's team with fire. He wasn't able to put out that fire. Don't know if he'd already used his damage repair or just didn't pay attention to the fact that he was on fire. I know it's happened to me until it's been basically too late. But here we can see the advantage that the Clemson has, and this is something that the U.S. destroyer line has up to the Nicholas, is having those torpedo tubes on both sides. Now you have the same number of torpedoes on each side, but having them on both sides means that you can put out a set, very quickly turn around, and put out a set on the other side. This is especially useful if you are going head-to-head against a battleship, especially a lower tier battleship where the accuracy is not as good, and you can use your speed to get in there and royally wreck them. This is why whenever you see me play low tier battleships, you'll notice that anytime there's a destroyer within 10 kilometers, I will always shoot at him for the simplest reasons, because I know he's going to try and bum rush me to use his torpedo reload, to use his dual sets to try and finish me off. Now Storm Surge is pushing up here. He can go one of 2 ways with this island. It is really kind of difficult to decide which way to go, because there's a possibility that no matter which way you pick, the enemy ship is going to go the opposite direction. Now Storm Surge opts to go to the port side of the island, and as he's pushing around here, it does look like this ship is pushing up here. Storm Surge is getting very close. He's using the island to lay that ambush, but remember, at 2 kilometers, you will be spotted by proximity regardless. However, it doesn't matter. That ship is dead. Now Storm Surge's team is up. They're up on number of ships, 2-to-1 advantage here. So they do have that points advantage, and they're sitting on a nice lead here with that points advantage. But really, what needs to happen is they need to take that B cap point, and nobody has actually pushed up to take the B cap point yet. And as you can see there, they've lost yet another destroyer, so there's still 1 destroyer left on the enemy team, and now they've lost their 2nd destroyer in very short order, so now it's just Storm Surge on the team, and the enemy team has now managed to kill the remnants down at the C cap point. And because they both only had 1 cap, you can see there the enemy team has started to gain that points advantage. And really, as soon as they tied the scores, they'd have the points advantage. But because they keep killing Storm Surge's team, they really do have a massive points advantage now. So you can see how very quickly this points advantage will shift from one side to the other, and this is why you do need to get in there and capture those other cap points, because Storm Surge's team, if they had had the B cap point this entire time, they would be equal to or above the enemy team on points, and they could coordinate their defenses better to defend the B cap point and not have to worry about the A cap point at all. But you can see there on the minimap, there's still ships that are kind of hiding off in the back, and they're not really getting into this game. It's something that I really dislike seeing in any match that I play, is people that are too afraid to get the paint on their ship scuffed up. Apparently they're all British XOs, and they are only promoted based off of how clean and tidy the ship appears, and not how effective they are. Storm Surge does manage to capture the B cap point. That's a full base capture for him, and as you've watched any of my other videos, you will know full base captures are worth a lot of delicious XP. So if you're grinding up a tech tree, especially a destroyer tech tree, go and don't be afraid to get into those caps and get those capture points, because you will gain a lot more XP and you will be able to very quickly get up that progression. As Storm Surge comes around this island, there are the enemy carriers, planes, and the enemy carrier himself. Now he's pushing in here. He does have to be a little bit cautious here because that carrier could spot him with his aircraft. He's keeping his distance. You'll notice he's not going straight in as those planes fly by here. And he'd really, really like to get shots out on that carrier, but there is a cruiser off over here. Now this cruiser is a danger to destroyers. It's a tier 4 cruiser, but it's still a very sizable danger. Now Storm Surge starts getting shots off. He's firing high explosives. It's the good ammo choice here. Of course, when he opens up, he is detected by aircraft. That's going to be the case, absolutely. So the carrier knows he's here, and he's trying to get shots off out there. His shots are going a little bit long here, and this is where RNGesus is going to play a factor. Look, that cruiser doesn't have a lot of health left, but look at all of these shots here. That cruiser, very, very low health here. The enemy carriers tried to dive bomb him. But look, his shots are bracketing that cruiser. Holy crap. Come on, RNGesus. Land those hits. Yes, finished him off. Fortunately, he didn't take too much damage from either the dive bombers or that cruiser. But man, that was such terrible RNG with those shots bracketing that cruiser. And really, you know, you find yourself in that situation if you're not running that detonation flag on your ship. That's the kind of situation where RNGesus kind of comes in and says, nah, screw you, miss all your shots, and then one hit from that guy just blows you out of the water. Now the enemy team is still up on ships at this point, but they're down on caps. So while they are gaining points, and they do have a points advantage right now, Storm Surge's team is gaining points at twice the speed. And if they can manage to take out another couple of ships here, they can give themselves a reasonable advantage to hold on to a points lead. And remember, at the end of a 20-minute battle, the team with the most points wins. You don't actually have to hit 1,000, and you don't have to kill everybody. I see a lot of people at low-tier battles who don't seem to understand that, especially people who come from World of Tanks, who don't seem to understand that, no, it's points-based, not number of remaining players-based. And there's no such thing as a draw unless you both tie on points. Now Storm Surge has come around here. This is the thing about the manual drops that I was talking about, because carriers can't do that. Very easy to avoid them, especially in a small light ship like a destroyer with a lot of maneuverability. So Storm Surge is just going to go ahead and start wailing on this carrier. He's firing high explosive in an effort to set that carrier on fire, and he's managed to do it earlier, but the carrier put out that fire right away. Now, I don't know if the CV player has a veteran carrier captain on this ship and is able to land and recover aircraft while the flight deck is on fire, but looking at it right here, it looks like that is actually the case. So something that you have to take into account. It used to not be the case. It used to be that if your flight deck was on fire, you couldn't launch or recover planes, but now there is that captain skill. So Storm Surge is just going to go ahead and continue laying into him. And you'll notice here, though, he is stopping. He's stopping so he can stay inside the C cap point. And right now, because his team holds 2 of the caps and Storm Surge is capping 3, the enemy team is not actually gaining any additional points from their base. The only points they're gaining is from killing the ships on Storm Surge's team. And look at that, though. They've managed to narrow him down to just 2. Now, Storm Surge has got that carrier on fire in so many places. There's nothing that carrier can do. The only question is, did he get his planes airborne in enough time to set up an attack run? Yes, he did. Now, Storm Surge does manage to secure a second base capture there. Second solo base cap. That's going to be good for him. Those planes coming in here. He's got his anti-aircraft up and running, partly because he's going to be detected anyway, and partly because the nearest ships who can actually challenge him with an attack are behind some islands. Those torpedoes coming in again, but again, you can see auto drop. Look how far away those torpedoes are, and they actually spread out. They get wider with the American carriers, although I'm not sure this is the American carrier. That might be the Japanese carrier. There are only 4 planes. It's hard to tell. Now, the last remaining ship on his team, aside from Storm Surge here, did do something useful at the very end. He actually managed to kill the ship that took him out. I don't know if he rammed him or what he did here, but Storm Surge is now the sole survivor. He's standing alone against 4. And unlike the situations I often find myself in, he's managed to get himself into a very nice situation. He's isolated behind some islands. The enemy team is not close to him, close enough to know where he's at exactly. And his team had all 3 caps, so they were gaining points at a very fast rate. Combine that with the fact that he's still got a lot of health left, this is actually an excellent situation for Storm Surge to be in to try and go for a solo warrior. So there you can see the points difference closing in, but it's looking like with the amount of time left, he's gonna have to kill something. And he's gonna have to kill something because, as you can see there, the enemy team capping the B cap point. If he's able to kill something, if he can make the enemy team have to find him to try and finish him off, he can keep their attention away from going towards the A cap point, away from trying to capture the C cap point. And it's important to continue to try and play to win, but also to try and play to distract the enemy from the fact that you are the last player around, and there are 2 open caps that you can't go defend, that they can go push up and sit in and just accumulate the points at the very end. Really, the enemy team has it the easiest, but remember, Storm Surge is in an excellent position as far as having a lot of health and being in a reasonably stealthy boat, being that a destroyer. He does have to worry about the last enemy destroyer, who could be anywhere at this point. And that enemy destroyer could be pushing up towards the C cap point. He could be running up to the A cap point. Either situation would be bad, as it would mean that Storm Surge's side would be gaining less points if either of those caps started getting taken. And as you can see here, the enemy team has started capping the C cap point. As Storm Surge gets his speed boost up, he's detected. He's spotted by the last enemy destroyer, has popped up here, and it's an Isakaze. Now, the Isakaze, pretty dangerous little destroyer to have to deal with, but not particularly good in a gunfight. So the Clemson's got the massive advantage here, and he's got the advantage that the Isakaze had significantly less health. The only problem is he's got to pay attention to the ships that are behind him. He has at least 1 enemy ship behind him coming around that island, and that could be a significant problem. And he's going to continue putting fire out here. He could probably just let that Isakaze burn to death, but he manages to kill him anyway, takes him out. He's still detected because he is in direct line of sight to the battleship that's behind him. Now the enemy team still capping C. They are going to manage to cap it. That ship managed to miss Storm Surge, and really at this point Storm Surge just needs to survive. His team is way up on points. They still have 1 cap left, and the enemy team is down on points enough that as the clock runs down, Storm Surge might be able to either hit that 1,000-point mark or run the clock down fast enough with a points advantage. But he isn't going to go and try and push it. Doing the math, this is where getting yourself in a nice, stable, hidden position is going to be important, because you got to do that math. You have to go in and figure out, I'm gaining 3 points every so many seconds. How many seconds are left on the clock? They're gaining twice that. How many points do they gain? What's the point spread difference? As you can see there, it's just a little over 200 points in Storm Surge's favor. And because of that, and the amount of time left, less than a minute here, it's not going to be likely that the enemy team is going to be able to gain those points. So Storm Surge, he's far enough away from what he believes to be any threats here. He's popping a smoke screen in case he got to hide in it if one of those ships pops out from behind an island. Not something that I would generally consider doing if you're in a destroyer, because that smoke screen is going to block your line of sight as well as theirs. But more importantly, enemy team sees a smoke screen, they might just try to speculatively fire into it. And again, if you're not running that demolitions flag, you run the risk of just exploding right off the bat. But Storm Surge is going to secure victory, being higher on the points as the clock runs out here. So congratulations to Storm Surge for your Solo Warrior, a medal I have never actually managed to achieve. And it was all partly thanks to the fact that the last few ships on your team did rally together and they did take out those remaining ships before going down themselves, so that you were alone against 4, exactly 4, it's an important marker. I've been alone against 3 before and won, but never 4. And you were able to take out the last destroyer, securing your victory. Top of the team for XP earned at well over 1,000 base XP there. Again, a very good matchup by Storm Surge in the Tier 4 US destroyer, the USS Clemson. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. If you liked the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me and the channel, as well as gain some additional perks, you can do so by supporting me on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can do so by sending it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play various games live from time to time, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.